Hello, good evening. Japan's Prime Minister has said the country is facing its worst crisis since the Second World War, and there are fears the death toll could reach tens of thousands. People have been warned to brace themselves for more major aftershocks in the next 72 hours. There are continued fears over the cooling systems on nuclear plants damaged by the quake. Hundreds of thousands of residents have been evacuated. Well, today the country doubled the number of troops involved in the rescue effort and introduced rolling blackouts across the country to ration electricity. We'll be reporting fears over the safety of the Fukushima nuclear plant in a moment. But first, Damien Grammaticus sent this report from the devastated city of Sendai.
In the distance, the skyscrapers of Sendai. But all around is destruction and teams searching for thousands who are still missing. Few could have survived this. In this field alone, I counted over 50 cars swept aside by the tsunami. Amidst the devastation, we came across Natsuko, unable to find her bearings because the tsunami has altered everything. She was riding her horse here when the earthquake struck. She jumped in her car and fled as the waves approached.
The traffic lights had stopped working and there was massive congestion. Rows and rows of cars. Words fail me because there's nothing here. The things that are supposed to be here, everything is gone.
Then she just stood where she was, rooted to the spot, bewildered. But others didn't outrun the tsunami. We watched as the teams found one more of the missing, drowned in their car. More than 200 bodies have been recovered in this area alone. And the police chief for the local prefecture estimates 10,000 have died. Then we headed further towards where the tsunami hit land. Everywhere is now a sea of mud.
Take a look at this. Cars swept into houses, and this is the little village of Higashiro down there. And look here, this is the road that leads up to the seaside up there. It's just covered in debris. The destruction just goes on and on.
Everything here has been smashed by the waves, the houses pulverized by the water, a motorcycle twisted and bent. And in the abandoned homes, the faces of those who once lived here, stained by the waters which filled everything. The old man told us that the faster people ran, the more chance they had of surviving. 30 people are missing, he said. He doesn't know if they're dead. But watch, and it's hard to believe many outran this. New footage of the tsunami. Gasps of astonishment from those watching as it poured over an embankment, across a road, into a car park. Boats are carried away, and people look on as they're crushed. See it and you understand why so much has been destroyed. Incredibly though, 10 miles off the coast, on the remains of the roof that was ripped off his home, Japan's Navy found 60-year-old Hiromitsu Shinkawa today, rescued. But his wife was swept away. Over 3,000 stranded people have been rescued, including this group of children, ferried to safety by Japanese troops. This evening, the recovery teams had to pull back a couple of miles from the seashore. Another tsunami alert has just sounded. Every day there are more new earth tremors, aftershocks. The natural order of things has been shaken here, and nobody knows when it'll settle down again. Damien Grammaticus, BBC News, Sendai.
Well, concerns are now being raised over 3 separate nuclear reactors at Fukushima following an explosion at one yesterday. There are worries that the reactors could overheat, leading to meltdown. There are also safety issues at 2 other nuclear sites. Officials are reassuring the public that there is no immediate danger, but an exclusion zone around Fukushima has been extended. The evacuation of people from the area now runs into the hundreds of thousands. Chris Hogg reports.
They survived the quake. Now they're being checked for radiation. Hundreds of thousands of people told to leave their homes in a wide area around a stricken nuclear plant.
I'm due to give birth soon. I want to know exactly what's going on at the nuclear plant. I'm scared.
They're struggling to make safe reactors damaged by the earthquake and the wall of water that swept through the complex in Fukushima. For a time, radiation leaked, exceeding safety limits. Officials say the levels have since declined. It's not the only plant with problems, though. This one, further north in Onagawa's been damaged too. On television here, they're looking for reassurance from the experts, but it's hard for the Japanese public to be sure about the level of risk they face. The Prime Minister's told the country they need to pull together in this time of need.
And against this hardship of earthquake and tsunami, we should be able to stand up to them. And we believe that we will be able to overcome this.
Strong aftershocks are still being felt across the country, adding to the risks the rescuers face. The problems at the nuclear plants are making a bad situation even worse. Huge swathes of the country still have no electricity supplies.
So serious are the shortages of power, from tomorrow the government will start rationing it here. In Tokyo and around the country there'll be planned power cuts lasting for 3 hours in each place. They're warning the restrictions on energy usage could last for weeks. It's a devastating blow for Japan, one of the world's largest economies. Chris Hogg, BBC News, Tokyo.
Well, the news that 3 reactors at one site are all overheating is causing concern beyond Japan. So what is going on inside the plant? How dangerous is the situation there? Our science correspondent David Shukman has been finding out.
Japan now faces trouble at no fewer than 3 nuclear power stations. This one, filmed before the disaster, is the most worrying. Its #1 reactor went wrong first. Yesterday, the building housing it exploded as pressure rose. The reactor inside is apparently undamaged, but tonight a struggle for control is underway. The power station is known as Fukushima Daiichi, and it's causing most concern, with trouble at 3 of its reactors. The building housing #1 exploded yesterday, and officials say a partial meltdown of the nuclear fuel may have happened. #2 reactor has a water level that's too low, so more is being pumped inside it. But it's the 3rd reactor that's causing greatest anxiety right now. It's impossible to know exactly what's going on inside it, but the flow of cooling water clearly stopped. The fuel rods will have heated up, and officials say it's possible they started to melt. The risk is that the pressure is too great for the steel reactor. Local residents are being checked as they leave the area. Radiation levels did rise briefly around the plant, and about 100 people have recorded some level of contamination. But officials say there's been no major leak of radioactivity, a great relief.
It's entirely right that they should check this, not least because if there are higher levels, that's not just a matter for the individual, it's more information about what's happened at the plant, which is important in the whole process. So this is very important information for the individuals and for the plant. But from what I've seen coming from the authorities so far, I don't think this is an issue that people will be worrying about.
But the authorities tackling the crisis at Fukushima have increased the size of the zone which may be at risk. From 10 kilometres to 20, hundreds of thousands of people are being moved out. This comes amid confusion. There are different theories about why the first reactor building exploded, and there's disagreement about how serious things are now. So far, the official line is that inside their concrete buildings, the reactors themselves remain intact. That's crucial because it reduces the risk of a serious leak. But the authorities still aren't in full control. David Shukman, BBC News.
Its hospitals stood defiant against the raging tsunami, but the small port town of Minami Sanriku has all but been wiped from the map. More than half of its 17,500 population is unaccounted for, feared dead. Alistair Leithhead was one of the first television journalists to reach the town, from where he sent this report.
From the air, it just looked unreal. But close up, the true impact the wave had here on homes, shops, whole neighbourhoods is overwhelming. For mile after mile, the tsunami flattened everything, throwing cars aside, pulverising houses and dragging the debris far inland. 10,000 people are still unaccounted for here. More than half the town is missing. This family did make it out in time. They came back today and were shocked by the damage. I was in the car with my daughter when everything began to shake violently, she told me. We rushed back to the house, grabbed a few bags. They then drove up and out of town just before the tsunami struck.
This is just one small cove, one tiny inlet that we've been able to get to along this vast length of coastline that was struck by the tsunami. And you can get a sense of the power of the wave that surged up this area, crushing this car as if slamming it into a wall. Another one on its roof, and buildings picked up and dragged by the power of the water up the valley. This is the impact in this small area alone. Imagine this many, many times over.
Tonight, hundreds of those who made it to safety were sheltering in a local school sports hall. Their homes and possessions lost, nowhere to go. They both read and told more stories of lucky escapes.
I watched everything. The wave came in and I saw it hit the concrete breakwater. It was just flicked aside and the water rushed inland. The houses were washed away.
Japan is prepared for earthquakes and even tsunamis. Their evacuation plans no doubt saved lives. But this was just so big, so powerful and so devastating, the number of dead will just continue to rise. Alistair Leithhead, BBC News, Minami Sanriku Village, Japan.